Welcome, everybody, to the Abandoned Brush. My name is Craig Mormon, and we are talking about high demand groups, also known as cults, specifically the Shambhala Buddhist organization, and all the things that go along with that, which includes trauma, control, abuse, all sorts of stuff that makes it hard to build a YouTube channel. We'll be talking about all of that here and more. So today I want to talk about a topic that is pretty close to home. My and maybe your broken vows and oaths. Having taken oaths and vows with Shambhala and then having later actively broken those vows by blowing the whistle or helping to blow the whistle on the situation that many of you are aware of. I'll leave links and stuff in the description below for people who are new to Shambhala or who don't have any idea what I'm talking about. So there's two topics that go hand in hand. One being what I already mentioned, broken vows and oaths, and the other being what you would call spiritual betrayal, which is a common term that people use to describe or to talk about the feeling that people have when they realize that the organization that they've been a part of has been in some way abusive or fraudulent or, whatever. You can bear with me here. So part of the reason why I wanted to discuss this is because I saw a couple of comments on the internet saying things about me like I can't be trusted because I've broken vows. There's a special place in hell for me. That was another one. And the same knucklehead watched my previous videos and saw that I was in a lot of pain while I was shooting those videos a couple of years and came to the conclusion that I was already in Vajra hell. Now, these are stupid people who are coming to these conclusions, and I know that most of you have gotten the point, but I think responding to the stupid comments is a kind of a decent approach. I'm not going to go into great detail. There is some stuff in that one comment that about the Vajra Hell one that I wanted to actually be able to quote, but good work, Reddit moderators. They deleted it for being probably victim blaming was the rule that they thought was being broken, but there's really a whole list of rules that were being broken by that particular comment. So, is what it is. Anyhow, what was I really experiencing in those moments as I was sitting there getting drunk? By the way, I quit drinking a couple years ago. I'm doing much better than I was in those videos. And filming those videos was a gigantic part of starting a healing process for me, which I tried to make clear in the intro video, but I can understand why some people, especially the willfully ignorant, might have missed that. So it bears repeating. But why was I in that state? Is it because I broke my vow? Was that the cause of my suffering? So I want to read something here. It's from what are they called? The International Cultic Studies Association. I'll put a link in the description so you can read the whole article. It's definitely worth it. But this is just the introductory part, which I think is a much better description of why I felt that way. The channel, by the way, is growing, and that's fantastic. And I think at some point I'm going to have to start using YouTube euphemisms for some of the things that we're talking about so that I don't get totally throttled by the algorithm. But, I was never very good at that, even as a child. So I'm not going to do that this time. And I swear I'll start at some point. But it would help a lot if you find this stuff valuable, if you were to share with people who you think might be interested in this content. Because we're actually doing okay. We're doing remarkably well for how young of a channel it is, but I think that's mostly people who are directly connected to Shambhala. So I do think there's value in this beyond that. So share with your friends and, subscribing and all of that really helps a lot so that when I say these words and I get throttled by the YouTube algorithm, maybe somebody can still find this stuff. So let me just read this to you. On July 22nd to 24th, 1994, AFF conducted an After the Cult workshop at the St. Malo Retreat Center in Estes Park, Colorado. Carol Giambalvo, Nancy Milkelin, my goodness, could they have more difficult names? Hal Mansfield, that's an easy one. Roseanne Henry and I organized not me, the writer, organized the workshop and served as presenters, as did David Clark and Bob Penny. It was the first in the Denver area, and it was extremely well received by the participants. The insightful and moving discussion inspired me to write down some of the reflection inspired by the workshop. I wish to share these with you. As the workshop participants made very clear, the subjective essence of the cult experience is psychological abuse and betrayal in particular. Cults ostensibly offer to fulfill commonly experienced human needs for understanding, certainty, and self-esteem. They provide an absolutist triad of black and white answers to life's problems. And I had to think about this one for a second because that's a pretty strong statement, right? But if you think about it, it fits quite well. So let me see here. Where was that? I gotta see. I'll get better at this, folks. But there's an urgency to this. So the videos are crappy because I can't wait, because it makes me think about this stuff. And the more I think about it, it bugs the hell out of me. So I have to keep going, even though I'm technically crappy at this. So bear with me. I will get better. Anyway, let me see here. Aha. They provide an absolutist triad of black and white answers to life's problems, a refusal to entertain doubt about those answers, and a promise of being superior to everyone outside of the group. Youth and individuals experiencing stress, which includes nearly everyone at some point in their lives, are most likely to be attracted to groups offering this triad. If vulnerable persons enter a sufficiently persuasive or seductive cultic group at the right time in their lives, they may indeed join. I presume that there's a range of groups varying from mildly to extremely persuasive, and that the people will differ in their susceptibility to particular group pitches. When they join, the members expect benevolence, respect, love, help, etc. What they receive is very different. Is this meeting with anybody's experience in Shambhala yet? The reason is twofold. First, the absolutist triad is an illusion. It moves people away from reality and genuine human connections. It's the opposite of what one could call the adaptive triad, a questioning mind possessed of a healthy measure of doubt, discernment, funny because Shambhala likes that word a lot, tolerance of ambiguity, no black and white answers, and a humble yet critical openness to the meaning systems of other people. Thus, to the extent cults try to deliver the absolutist triad, and they try very hard, they come into conflict with the inexorable demands of the human condition. The second reason cults don't deliver the benevolent results they promise is their tendency to manipulate and exploit their members. Sound familiar? Groups that aren't manipulatively exploitative are not cults. So put that in your definitions there. Cults employ subtle processes of thought reform, also called coercive persuasion and mind control, to recruit members and to maintain them in systems that exploit members' needs while promising to fulfill those needs. Thought reform is not all-powerful, as some sensationalized media accounts imply, nor do all groups employ it to the same extent, but it can be remarkably successful in causing large numbers of persons to spend years in social systems that are harmful and sometimes extremely abusive. Most persons ultimately leave cults or are ejected from their groups. Research suggests that members leave them because they become disenchanted with the group's inability to deliver on its promises, become disillusioned with the hypocrisy or fraudulent practices of the group's leadership. I think I might have mentioned a little bit of that in the last couple of videos in detail. Let's see here. Leadership are separated from the group for a period of time or are able to discuss doubts and concerns with an intimate. A majority appears to be troubled by the experience, while some are devastated. We can only speculate on how many are troubled, but unable to acknowledge or recognize their pain. This is why we are here. The core of this distress is the sense of having been abused by persons thought to be benevolent. That is, of having been betrayed. When they leave their groups, many members feel spiritually raped, violated at the core of their beings. As with physical rape, this violation is traumatic, and as with rape, it severely damages the capacity to trust oneself, others, and God. Or Buddha in our case, huh? Ironically, ex-cultists find themselves most in need of the illusory comfort of the absolutist triad when they let me start that one again. Ironically, ex-cultists find themselves most in need of the illusory comfort of the absolutist triad when they realize that they've been betrayed by those promising this triad. That is why perhaps so many persons will join cultic groups after leaving another. Sort of makes sense, I guess. If they have insight sufficient to resist the allure of the absolutist triad, they will understandably feel empty, depressed, guilty, and painfully unsure of what or who is real and trustworthy, and even how to discover what or who is real and trustworthy. In the most extreme cases, they are in a state of psychological bankruptcy in which all feelings are tinged by the sourness of betrayal. They must begin anew when they have nothing to grab hold of and no idea where to turn for help. Or maybe I was in Vajrahel, you fucking knucklehead. So what you saw in those videos was me struggling with exactly these things. And as I mentioned in the ones that I've filmed so far, part of that struggle had to do with my own complicity in this, which, still bothers me to this day. At this point, I'm getting much better at forgiving myself for the mistakes that I made. But yeah, at that point, when I was filming those videos, and there are more for those of you who are loving the rawness of the Talking About Shambhala series, don't worry, there are a handful more, but I'm going to be weaving newer videos in along with those. I did put, on the thing, this is when I was at rock bottom, but not too long after that. So I shot those videos for as long as I could, and it helped me move forward, but I had to stop because, for one thing, I wasn't putting them out there, and it kept me thinking about this stuff. And now that I've started to play these videos again, I've realized that it's happening again. And the reason why I stopped was because I couldn't handle it. I can handle it a little bit better now. And honestly, what's really keeping me going are your comments and your emails. Because I've heard from a lot of people, and it's a lot of confirmation and a lot of validation that we need something like this. It didn't have to be me, but I'm a glutton for punishment, so I decided to do it. But we need to talk about these things. And so anyway, I was right basically at the end of my rope when I started filming those videos. And filming those videos and being able to talk about this stuff and to verbalize just how fucked up it really was is what kind of allowed me to start a healing process. And I don't know exactly how many, 3 to 6 months after I stopped filming those videos, I had a complete and total breakdown. I was living in Mexico. I threw myself on the mercy of my family, who thankfully responded, helped me get out of debt, brought me back to the United States, got me a therapist, and started me on the road to recovery. And that story, in and of itself is like, I'm not going to probably tell that story, but it was harder than you can imagine. And this has been probably the hardest couple of years of my life, but I've been very, very lucky. A friend of mine found me a job in a brand new field that I've never worked in before, which was good news and bad news, because then I had to spend the last 2 years working my ass off to learn how to do this job. But now I'm actually doing halfway decent as far as that's concerned. But I would still walk around thinking about Shambhala and thinking about all the shit that happened, and making sense of it. And I actually noticed on Reddit that people were still coming back years later, and they still had so much confusion and so much pain. And there's still people asking, should I join Shambhala? And it's like, we need this shit. We need to talk about this shit. And you might need to talk about this shit. So I made that request the other day, and somebody actually did get in touch with me about sharing his story, and I'm going to try and find a way to do that. But I realized we can overpower this fucking situation if we all tell the truth. If we all courageously tell the truth. And I know that some of you can't do that for some reason, so I'm not pushing anybody. But those of you who want to tell your stories, come talk to me. We can find lots of different ways to do it. I realize people have different capacities. I would love to do some live stream conversations and really let some people share their stories, but I know that not everybody can handle that. Maybe you have a job and you want to be anonymous or whatever. But you can email me. I will read your story. I will share your story. If you trust me. And if you don't trust me yet, wait, maybe you will. So that's an aside. So let's talk about vows. Because like most of you, I know that most of you understand. Most of you who are watching this understand, but there's just this handful, and those stupid knucklehead questions sort of, give me good material to talk about. But I started to think about how many fucking vows I took in Shambhala. And it's like refuge vow, bodhisattva vow, samaya vow, other samaya vow at Vajrayogini. The first fucking Shambhala vow that happens at like level 4 or whatever. There's the one before that. There's this other one on the side. Then there's the one from Warrior Assembly. Then there's the one from Kalapa Assembly. Then there's the ones from Rigdon Abhisheka. Then there's the other ones from Scorpion Seal. And it's just vow upon after vow after vow after vow after vow. They must know nobody can keep track of this shit. And they're all a little bit the same, but the one that we're really talking, the most important one that we're talking about, is the Kosing Oath. Because when I was 2 years, I think, into the whole thing, and I was absolutely convinced that this was the truth for life, and they had to, how did they describe it? The absolute truth. It's a perfect description. Please go read that article, because it really, if you think about it, it fits perfectly Shambhala. But I took an oath to respect the confidentiality of the lineage. I think that's how they put it. And to not share, insider information that came across my eyes. I don't know. I said that wrong. Anyway, you know what I mean? Not to say shit that I saw. And I mentioned earlier they had this whole protocol for talking to a superior officer and so on and so forth, and whatever. But I kept that fucking vow for a really long time. And I took those vows very, very seriously. And that night in Chile, something happened to me that I didn't, I'll talk about this later, but like, you know, for me, like I had never seen anything quite like that before. I'd seen some of the crazy stuff. I'd seen some of the drunkenness. I've seen some of the, I can see the future sort of bullshit proclamations and shit like that. And I'd seen him be kind of a little bit of a dick to some people, but I'd never seen that. And I couldn't get my head around it. Like I couldn't understand, because I had definitely seen that many people were willing to give him whatever he wanted without any resistance at all. So I just couldn't fathom what was going on. It's like, I mean, my rationalization was, I guess he's used to people saying yes, so he got mad when somebody said no. But I didn't know the details. But still, I was kind of stuck with this. This did not add up in my mind, right? And it felt bad, right? But you know, they supposedly dealt with it and whatever. But it wasn't long after we got back that, you know, rumors started. And I remember being in the smoking section at Shambhala Mountain Center, and I was sitting there with the big cook, those of you who know who that is. And there was another person there, and he said, so what happened in Chile? I heard there was some bad stuff that went on. And the other guy, who was more used to this than I was, immediately said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Everything was fine. My reaction was, because I was like, because I actually have a really, really fucking hard time lying. And so I had to figure out how to not say things without lying, because it's like I have this kind of built-in thing, like, you know, you don't look fat in that outfit is like, it took me years to figure out how to say that, you know, because I actually really have a hard time lying. But he was more skilled at it and better. So he's like, oh no, everything was fine. Oh, Chile was a great trip. And I just kind of froze. Froze is one of my favorite trauma responses too, but I kind of was just like, but I carried that fucking shit with me, and it ate at me for 20 fucking years. Okay. And I still didn't tell. I didn't tell anybody. And there's so much shit. I didn't tell anybody anything. Just to be clear about how good standing I was in, I got asked to go on duty again, even though I hadn't been on duty for years. I got asked to go on duty again a few weeks or months before the whole Sunshine Report came out. I think I mentioned this once before. Because guys like me are good in a crisis, you know, so I think they knew it was coming. But so the point is, like, I had kept these fucking vows, and this whole thing went down, and I watched, and I was like, what's going to happen? You know, how's he going to react? What's he going to say? I figured I'd give him a chance, you know? And when he finally did come out with his, well, now that, like, I waited for Wickar home and all that stuff, and then he came out with his letter that he's like, well, now that we know that nothing really bad happened, I guess we can all move on together. Because nobody had backed up, you know, some of the more important stories. I mean, some of those stories were already backed up. I don't know how people, like, because the thing that happened to Julia at the birthday party, that's kind of enough. You know, that's actually kind of enough to be like, this guy's not what he says he is. But that wasn't enough, because that was thoroughly corroborated. Everybody knew that had happened. Chile, for example, 20 years ago, hardly anybody was there. You know, maybe it did, maybe it didn't, maybe it didn't happen the way she said it did. You know, it's all, you know, a lot of these other ones is like, there was no corroboration until, you know, what happened. But there was a chance, like, and you have to remember that this is back when I didn't realize how bad things were, because I didn't know that he couldn't just come out and say, oh, I did that shit. Because a bunch of it was criminal, and I didn't realize how fucking criminal it was. So at this state, I'm still totally naive, and I'm like, well, you know, let's see what he says. Like, and if he tells the truth, then good. And then we got that, oh, well, we can move on and create enlightened society bullshit letter. And I was just, beside myself. So it wasn't until then. It wasn't until then that I decided to break that oath. And I could have walked away, man. I could have just walked away. We all could have, all of us who wrote that letter and the people who supported us behind the scenes. And we all could have just walked away and just, like, it would have been way more peaceful. Way fewer people would have known our names. There would have been so many things that would have been so much easier than what we chose to do. And I took those oaths and those vows very, very seriously. They probably kept me up at night at times. It's like, but when I heard those stories and I started to put it together, it was like, no, people need the truth. People need to know the truth. So that's why I wrote in the Kusung letter, like, I didn't feel like I was actually breaking the oath. That was back when I gave a shit. Because I don't care if I broke it or not now, because it wasn't valid to begin with. The teacher was a fraud. The teacher was an asshole. The teacher was not what he said he was. It's not what he said he was. The community was not what it said it was. They abused and manipulated me and hundreds, probably thousands plural, who genuinely experienced terrible abuse in the form of sexual abuse that has been discussed extensively but not enough, but extensively, because you're probably aware of those things if you're watching this. But the exploitation of just good people who just wanted to practice compassion, and you fucking put them on this hamster wheel of guilt and shame, and extract their labor and their money from them so that you can go on lavish vacations and spend just ridiculous amounts of money on skin creams and shit. And you're the pinnacle of non-materialistic, compassionate wisdom. So yeah, I broke the fucking vow. I'm proud of it. I am fucking proud of it. And I am so proud of Ben and Alia and Laura and Dave and everybody else. Recording, so this may have worked out. Let me try that again. I'm so very proud of Alia and Laura and Ben and Dave and Alia, Laura, Ben, and Dave. I'm missing one. Am I missing one? I'm missing one. I'll put it in the comments. I did not plan to mention that, but so when that happened, this is interesting. I want to tell this story a little bit. I read that letter and I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I was so angry because I still thought there was a chance that he could be like a little bit decent, and I had hope. I mean, 20 some years of my life thinking he's the enlightened manifestation of compassion. I had hope that he would fucking, do something decent. And when he wrote that letter, I was so angry. I was so disappointed. And I had already been in touch with Ben and a couple of other people. So we were watching this go. And I don't know if I emailed or texted or called Ben or what. And I was like, did you read that shit? And he was like, uh-huh. And I said, it kind of makes me want to do something. And he was like, welcome aboard. I've already been talking to some people. And that was when I came into the group who wrote the Kusung letter, because they were already getting started, and I don't know, I'm sure they would have done it without me, but I think strength in numbers, I just added a little bit more to what was happening. I'll talk a little bit some other time about what it was like to write that letter. and what the period of time between sort of things coming out and writing the letter and the early aftermath, what that was like for me personally, because that was really, really difficult time. But yeah, so that spiritual betrayal that I mentioned and read about invalidated all of our vows, every single one of us. So there is no special place in hell for me. And if karma doesn't think, then we stopped a fucking train wreck of abuse. Shambhala was getting big. It was getting bigger. There was a lot of momentum. And all those people who told their stories, and all those people who backed their stories up, and all those people who said, fuck no, we put an end to or prevented the suffering of countless people. So many people did not get fucked by Shambhala because of what we did. Or I could have kept my oath. Then I could pat myself on the back and say, oh, but mommy, I didn't snitch. Fuck that. Fuck that. I'm a snitch. And I'm proud of it. And I'm proud of every single one of you who told your story, who backed up somebody else's story, or who just said fuck no and walked away from this shit. Rather than trying to hold together. I still have so much contempt for the people who tried to hold together this thing. We'll talk about that more later on, but I think I've made my point on this one. So, as always, please share these videos with people who you think would benefit from them, and please talk to me. Share your story, because, man, this abuse was not just at the center. This abuse was everywhere. And so if you think your story is too small or something, it's not. It's not. It might not be enough to talk about for a couple of hours or something, but like it might be worth sending me an email and having me read it to people. But the more that we can layer this on, the more people who can show the same pattern over and over again, and the more permanently that this is on the internet, the more people we're going to prevent from being harmed. When I put those videos out, I didn't make a very good introduction. I just threw them on the internet and watched what happened because I had to force myself to do this. And you can see in the last couple of videos, I kind of crossed certain lines there to make sure that I could get all the way fucking in. But I didn't know what was going to happen. And since I've been hearing your comments and your emails and talking to people, I realized why this channel exists. And it's a simple goal. I don't think I can achieve this goal, but I can get a good ways towards it, which is I don't want one single person to feel any regret for walking away from Shambhala. I don't want you to feel any shame. I don't want you to feel any guilt. I don't want you to feel any fear of fucking karma or fucking Vajra hell or any of the bullshit that they tortured us with. I want you to be absolutely certain that you did the right thing by walking away from these motherfuckers. And for the people who are still stuck in Shambhala, grow some courage and get the fuck out. We're going to talk about how to heal trauma. We're going to talk about shit like that. Oh, this is important. This is a little bit unrelated, and I will talk about it later, but I think it's absolutely urgent under the circumstances. So it's probably backwards, right? That's what the camera does. I don't know how to flip it, but this book is called Complex PTSD From Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. And if you were close to Shambhala, you need this book. Almost guaranteed. There are others out there that are pretty damn good, but that for me has been one of the keys in my own growth and healing process. And I want to recommend that to everybody who's suffering right now. I'll talk more about probably the book, what's in it, what I've done to manage my own trauma and suffering that makes me able to look like this instead of the way that I did in the other videos. But notice I still sniffle because those are allergies, not cocaine, you fucking knucklehead. The kind of person who sees somebody sniffling and says, "Oh, maybe he's on cocaine," is the kind of person who likes to pretend that they know things. Because anybody who actually knew about cocaine would know that just sniffling is not a sign at all. But the big one is they touch their nose all the fucking time. See, because I actually was hooked on cocaine once, and I know, but I don't pretend to know things anymore. I used to do that a lot, so I have a little sympathy for it, but you fucking knucklehead. I wasn't on cocaine. You imagine I'm broke as hell, and I can afford cocaine. Genius. Anyhow, so share these videos. Get in touch with me. What are the other ones? Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with people that you think might benefit from hearing what I have to say, and maybe sharing what they have to say. And just remember, fuck those guys. Say it with me. Fuck those guys. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel shame. You got fooled. It's okay. Now it's time to heal. Thanks for watching.